it's a flagship government program. You know, and I was listening to the president who was talking about the fact that, it doesn't necessarily mean that extended working hours, but you know, more about accelerated, you know, development and the fact that we are increasing productivity.
Sounds interesting.
You know,
see how it goes.
We launched that and we saw the Indian Prime Minister. You know, His Excellency Modi. I don't want to pronounce the first name. I was going to finish
the pronunciation.
I'll not pronounce the first name. You know, His Excellency, you know, Mr. Modi was in town. The state welcomed him in a very, you know, grand event. There was also a dinner in his honor. And I think there was also...
he addressed Parliament.
But there was Parliament, right, where they were debating road contracts, you know, and government allocation, budgetary allocations. And of course, the no-fee stress, which was launched yesterday.
Yeah,
but in between, I think there was something.
joy on people's faces in senior, in universities across the country.
It was unbelievable.
They were happy.
Unbelievable. Of course, there was also the National Day of Thanksgiving and Prayer.
Oh, yes. And speaking about that, I was also very honored. I think the highlight of my week was meeting Cardinal.
I saw your post.
Oh, my word.
I saw your post.
What a man. Very smart, very intelligent. Bernard had an interview with him, which will play on Monday for Point of View. So you should watch that. I have my rosary that has been blessed by him. All the Catholics on my handle have been screaming, "Oh my God, you must be blessed," because yes, of course I'm blessed to have met him. And then he gave his very own rosary to my colleague Chris. So. That was I'm sure that was the highlight of his week, probably his whole year.
You know, it's interesting. Me, that I'm the producer of the show, they didn't take me. Can you imagine, guys? Me, I'm producer of the show. They didn't take me to go and meet the guy.
At that point
and they've got to do their own thing.
No,
Issue
we told you.
On behalf of the production team, we issue a restraining order from the airing of the interview until all our members.
And you kept giving Chris instructions. Have you done this? Have you done this?
Of course.
Have you done this?
Of course.
Yeah, so when it was time to leave, we were like, since we are producing the show this week, we left.
I mean, I'm so happy for you that, it speaks to the volume of the man. I hear people say, and you know, to me, it goes back to the Habimus Papu. When I found out that was Chris's nickname in the news, it was quite interesting. But I see, during the conversation around who becomes Pope, right, his name featured very prominently, right? So he speaks, and even more so, I go back to listen to his speech or his address during the National Day of Thanksgiving and Prayer, and I'm like, wow, we indeed have the man, you know.
All encompassing. All of us are involved in the governance of the country. So.
You know, it's something we say a lot, but you know, when somebody of his stature and his caliber, you know, reminds us about it and the way he even went about it, right? So, of course, it's a collective effort, right from the top to the baby in the stomach, in the womb, you know. Everybody has got a role to play. So I think it was a really interesting week, a very busy week. And on that note, we can delve into some of the big news stories.
Yes. I have ChannelOneNews.com. Or you want to do the Spectator before we do online portals?
I could do the Spectator. The big story here, lack of basic amenities cause of high attrition rate in our front plains. It's like every day, lack of basic amenities, lack of infrastructure, low level of education. You know, like back in the days, social studies, there were like 4 points that ran through every answer. And it's back here again. So lack of basic amenities, you know, cause of high attrition rate in Afram Plains. Also here, a well-nourished population leads to increased productivity. That's an article. And the story I was telling you about, headmistress displaced, seized contraceptives at PTA meeting, page 3. I'll bring viewers except for that story. And on the back page, Hearts Kotoko clash for President's Cup. We are being told that every goal has to focus score. They will earn $1,000 by the Greater Accra Regional Minister Linda Oku. I'm sure that should be some motivation. She should go and fix.
She's going to fix the street lights.
No, say it again. Say it again. Viewers didn't hear you.
She should go and fix the street lights. She promised that on this. No, it was Sunday breakfast that she said it was what 70%.
Yeah.
70%. You and I live in this city.
But to be fair to her, a lot of work has gone into it. I'm not sure she met her timeline, but if you compare.
Work? Because my road is still dark.
Yeah, but you see,
Accra the N1 is still dark. No. Our producers are even saying, please. It is not 70%. It is not 70%. Jude, I will not let you say anything in her favor, please.
Easy.
She has not delivered.
To appreciate the work she's done, you need to look at what it was before.
It's still the same.
I think there have been significant
Nothing
improvements.
has changed.
I drive on the Bema Camp Road. Is it the Gifford Road, right?
Yes, the Gifford Road.
And I see that the street lights are working.
When did you pass them? Because I passed them recently and it was dark.
No, then maybe it has gone on.
Was
and
dark.
now even be a bigger problem if indeed it was on and now it's gone
dark.
off. I used the Major Mahama bypass towards Chado.
Okay.
The Major Mahama roundabout, that stretch. It used to be very dark. The very last time, and I used that quite often on weekends. It was lit up. Of course, the Independence Avenue stretch, the main road in front of the presidency all the way to 37.
That one has always had lights.
Actually, that is the point, you know. In the previous, I don't say previous government, but some months back, it was very dark. In fact, there was news around how the presidency of all places, or the road that leads to the presidency.
So that stretch has lights.
That stretch has lights. And
the rest of us, we should do what? We don't deserve lights on our stretches.
You know, so like I'm saying, there's a lot more she should be doing, and she invited this onto herself. I was at that event that
she made that
promise. Exactly. It was uncalled for. Like nobody was expecting it, and in front of everybody, she just gave the bombshell, and the news would just change. In fact, she was meeting MMDCs at the time, you know, and the news would just,
of course,
change like that, and everybody's like, you know. So I broke the story, and I saw people also, you know, jump on it.
You need to revisit it and tell her that months down the line,
she needs to go back again.
Several of our crossroads are still dark. What does she intend to do?
I agree.
What is she doing to ensure that she fulfills her promise to Ghanaians? She can't hold us to ransom.
I agree she has to go back, except that I'll just make a slight say, yeah, there's still a challenge, but she's done some work.
So,
but of course, you don't.
Two stretches of roads is good for you.
I could mention a couple more, because I know, you know, our colleague in the newsroom went to look at some work done in certain parts. Of course.
Medina stretch, dark.
Yeah, but you see.
Accra Kumasi, dark. Circle Tessano, dark.
Her salary, I don't even.
N1.
Her salary, she doesn't even give me some to eat, so I don't even know why I'm worried myself.
Since you broke that story, you need to go back and ask her.
I don't even know why I'm wearing myself like that.
Ask her, Greater Accra Regional Minister, like how far?
When she takes the per diem, she says, "Oh, Judah, So yeah, I mean, she should do more. We should see.
Also, the reclamation of the Ramsar sites. Ask her how far.
Yeah, but see, you know, I think we need again. I'm not trying to hold brief for her.
It's fine. But you can say you're not trying to hold brief for her, but you keep
because I'm really
trying to make excuses.
You see, this is a person we saw what happened in the vetting.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people give
that's for you. We know you.
You know, exactly. Not a lot of people give it. You know, people thought it was an easy pass. You know, the minority probably passed through the back door, and you know, whatever reason. So she wasn't really held to, and before her appointment, the truth is not a lot of people had heard her, you know, in the public domain talk on national issues and stuff like that. So for me to see her lead with such energy and verve, going to the site to demolish buildings that have been there for years, you know, outdated, if that's the word, you know, even people we considered stronger, you know, regional ministers, I think we should give her some credit, you know.
No.
And with the, I don't want us to debate this. and with the street lights, of course, she can't fix everything. She said her worst at the time was between 70% to 100%. You know, so I think there's room for
you see my expression right now.
There's room for improvement, but it will be a bit unfair to say that.
I don't think it's unfair.
Nothing has happened in this
Nothing has happened.
I think it's unfair.
Absolutely nothing has happened.
But it's
the stretches, the major roads that we're expecting lights on do not have lights. The presidency and the other road that you mentioned, fine.
You know, people are quick.
But what happens to the N1 stretch, Achimota stretch, Gimpa stretch? There was this video of a girl who recently was attacked while on that Gimpa stretch.
And the lights weren't on.
Because there was a slight traffic and the guy opened her door and tried to snatch her bag.
Yeah, I saw that.
But lucky for her, she was, you know, able to keep her bag in
and
her
car. The lights weren't on. It's a fact that the lights weren't on.
It's a dark road. And you and I both know it. Don't sit there and act like, you know, like an ostrich.
Madam,
the roads are dark. Madam, fix them. You said 70%. I don't think it's 70%. At most, 10 or 5%. Let me do the online portals. I have ChannelOneNews.com. The one is the digits one. Some of the stories you'll find. Hajj task force admits mistaken identity in death report of Ghanaian pilgrim. I can only imagine what the family went through. Mahama launches no free stress policy for first-year students. You don't have legal recognition, Professor Jinapo. Yes, no, this ChannelOneNews.com. Okay. You don't have legal recognition, Professor Jinapo tells Tewuji H. Davis Ansa Poku backs Sam George's call for cheaper DSTV rates. Trainee allowance to be paid monthly, Mahama announces. That DSTV thing, aside the cheaper rates, it can't be that in Siumunaya, then that message will come on. I mean, come on. How, when, what? 2025?
Yeah, and if you make a comparative analysis, we are paying way more than, you know, a lot of African countries.
Other African countries that use it.
It doesn't make sense.
Other stories you'll find on ChannelOneNews.com. Hashtag signs maiden collective agreement with government. Commuters call for urgent completion of Ankor in Sawam stretch. Security guard jailed for stealing €5,600 from NHIS head office. Actually, pounds, 5,600 pounds. Bewa Palace suspends Bugum Festival amid rising tensions. Sam George holds crunch meeting with DSTV over subscription rate reduction. Other stories, reconstituted FSC reaffirms commitment to safeguarding Ghana's financial system. 57% of Airbnb hosts in Ghana oppose regulation by Tourism Authority. There's a report there.
We are not targeting honorary title abuse. Let me take it again, I beg your pardon. We are targeting honorary title abuse, not politicians. That's coming from GTech boss, Professor Ahmed Abdullahi Janapo. Make internet affordable with monthly flat rates. David Ansa Opoku, who's a member of the Communications Committee of Parliament. Shock in Medina as woman declared dead during Hajj returns home alive. These stories are all on the citynewsroom.com. In the central region, private security officer murdered at Gomwa Akoti, one district, one factory. Give roads ministry contractors time to fix Ofankor in Sawam Road. That's coming from the MCE. Mahama launches no free stress policy, as you rightly said. And finally, some stories here. Ghana police pass out 545 recruits to support 24-hour economy.
I'm on graphiconline.com. Some of the stories you'll find on the portal. Okujeto Ablakwa claps back at U.S. Senator, demands reparations over slave trade. Win Ghana relaunch to empower women in nuclear science and technology. In Ghana, new oil and gas discovery off Cape 3 Points gets green light for development. Man kills rival over ex-wife's love affair. Police arrest suspect after viral video. Former Sports Minister Mustafa Yusuf mourns loss of sister. Funeral scheduled for Sunday in Kufuria. Yana bans fire festival celebration in Tamale. Unacceptable behavior. UPSA condemns staff after dress code enforcement turns physical. National HIV estimates 15,290 new infections recorded in 2024. All government agencies to switch to prepaid meters to curb power losses. GRNMA condemns CHAG over intimidation tactics against striking nurses. See the members of the newly sworn in Nasia and NACA boards. ATM card left behind at crime scene leads to arrests in shocking East Legon murder. And Ghana Water shuts down Pong treatment plant today. I never mentioned that thing. Did I mention it right? Pong or Pong?
When you mentioned it, I didn't have cause to. I didn't have cause to be alarmed. So I guess you're fine.
Okay. Pong treatment plant today for emergency repairs. Indian Prime Minister Modi shocks Ghana's parliament, says India has over 2,500 political parties. Imagine that.
It's the world's largest democracy.
Yeah, but 2,500 political parties.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, only one will be. And I hear it takes weeks.
For the elections.
Absolutely. The Foreign Affairs Minister put it in a really interesting way.
He said, how many days it takes to count their election? Yeah. Or is it digitalized? So like the minute you...
I think they vote, as in they cast the ballot.
They cast the ballot.
the foreign affairs minister put it in an interesting way, right? He said that the world's largest democracy meets, I think, the continent's best democracy, right? Talking about India and Ghana relations. And I thought that was quite interesting. You know, if you consider the fact that the country with the world, they are right behind China, you know, but in the region of about 1.41 billion people. And that's a lot of people, you know, sometimes you say Accra is even like, we are a lot here, right? But exactly. But,
so you can't compare.
Imagine, you know, New Delhi or India. Oh God, you know, interesting.
We forgot to mention this story. President Mahama swears in 7 new Supreme Court justices, urges independence and integrity. If you have a protruding stomach, you're sick. That's according to Dominic Nitimo. Minister condemns rise in sexually explicit content on TikTok. Demands local regulation. And why Agradaa has been sentenced to 15 years hard labor.
Wow. We also mentioned earlier on that the Energy Ministry has declared Iban Akoma discoveries commercially viable. So hopefully Ghana will be raking in more from, you know, oil. You know, I want us to delve into this story on the no-fee stress, because when there was when
Can
the
I do Ghana Weekend briefly before you delve into that story? Okay, so I'm on GhanaWeekend.com. Ibrahim Mahama supports Susie Pnamai's eye surgery recovery with 50K Ghana City donation. Footballer Thomas Partey charged with rape. Government working with TikTok to curb harmful content, protect Ghanaian values. That's according to Sam George. Adventist SHS student Susie Pnamai returns home after successful eye surgery in UK. Tourists spend over $3,700 on average in Ghana, stay 13 nights. That's a GTA report. Bet US sets odds on Diddy's fate. Imagine that. Ghana welcomed 1.29 million visitors in 2024. That's 22.4% who came for business. Agrada's 15-year jail sentence, not news. That's according to her husband. Suge Knight reveals that Tupac's family and friends smoked his cremated ashes. And The Devil Wears Prada 2 officially announced.
Oh, with the Susie Pinaman story, that was a really, you know, heartwarming story, right? And, you know, I'm sure she'll be so grateful to the CEO of Engineers and Planners, Ibrahim Mahama, for this really generous gesture.
Yeah.
You know, Mahama launches no-fee stress policy. Story by Letitia Osei on citynewsroom.com. President John Dramani Mahama has announced the clearance of academic user fees for an initial 15,000 first-year tertiary students under the newly introduced no-fee stress policy. The announcement was made during the official launch of the policy on Friday, 4 July, at Koforidia in the Eastern region. The president reaffirmed his administration's commitment to making tertiary education accessible to all Ghanaians, regardless of financial background. The monies, you know, has indeed hit their accounts. In fact, the monies hit their accounts before the president's official launch. And, you know, boys and girls were happy, but they were saying that may it not become another case of, you know, now we can't pay the money and people are agitating and are angry and they are protesting, like we saw with NAPCO and other, you know, youth-led initiatives, right? So, for example, teacher training allowance, nursing training allowance.
He also announced that they're going to be paid monthly, right?
Yeah. So we'll see how that also turns out. But no fee stress has been launched and boys and girls are happy, you know. Do you have any other story?
Yes. Let me read Sanders. Sanders' interesting Hajj task force admits mistaken identity in death reports of Ghanaian pilgrim. So the Hajj task force has admitted to a case of mistaken identity that led to a Ghanaian woman being wrongly declared dead during this year's Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia. The mix-up, which resulted in the issuance of an official death certificate by Ghana's consulate in Saudi Arabia, caused the family of Fatima Kasim to hold her funeral, only for her to return home alive, shocking her Medina UN community in Accra. Director of Administration of the Hajj Task Force, Alhaji Idi Sumaila, explained the circumstances leading to the error. These are his words. There were 2 patients there. One had a tourist visa and the other went with us. But by then their passport was not with them. So we mistakenly gave the one with the tourist passport to this one. Usually when it happens, it is the embassy that takes control. So they issue the certificate. So we knew that one was gone and one was on admission. Mistakenly, we exchanged it. Member of the task force, Alhaji Amadu Sorogo, also took responsibility for the mix-up, saying, we have a mistaken identity. The most important thing is that the lady is alive and everything is over. Fatima's unexpected return on Wednesday caused panic among residents who believed they had seen a ghost. Her family is still trying to process the shock, told City News Umar Hassan Amadu. I feel happy and sad because we are still confused about the situation. This is like a wonder. Imagine. What would you have done? I told you what I would have done. What would you have done?
Yeah, you know, knowing how, I had no offense, right, but knowing how the process was really lousy in terms of the support given to the pilgrims, right, I wouldn't have been surprised at all. We were in this country where we saw news reports, social media posts about how the Hajj task force were not up to the tax, right? Despite, of course, it came with a lot of fanfare. Government reducing the cost of going on the pilgrimage from about 72,000 to 62 or 64,000 cedis. A lot of people were excited. They saw the good faith government was, doing to support our Muslim community. But they got there and, people were not really happy with the service. Some of them had to sleep outside. Some of them didn't have proper accommodation and all of that. So if you consider the really lousy, for want of a better word, nature of how some of the pilgrims were being taken care of, then you won't be too surprised that some of these things happened. And for me, the downside is that now that is a mistaken identity. A family elsewhere who would have been expecting their relative or their loved one to have returned safely will now, be mourning and also, in shock in the whole process and would have to put themselves together towards like a burial or, so it's of course, if you are with the family of Madame Kasim, I believe that's her name, right? Hajia Kasim.
Hajia Kasim.
You'll be elated, except that you are told that some family members have already begun, they began sharing the so she has to retrieve all of it, you have to bring it back.
I'm sure. She said, Hajia, she has money, she can let it go.
But hopefully this is a learning curve, right? So that the authorities in charge are able to do a much better job next time in terms of like documentation, accounting for the people, providing for their needs when they pay, and when they pay to go on the pilgrimage and all of that. But I'll let me do the story from the Spectator newspaper, right?
Yeah.
Headmistress displays seized contraceptives at PTA meeting. Story on page 3. Parents were stunned. They were stunned when Mrs. Dorothy Adentwi Hayford, the Agri Memorial SHS headmistress, displayed seized condoms, pills, and unauthorized items from students during a spirited address at the school's PTA meeting in Cape Coast. In a firm stance against growing indiscipline in the school, Mrs. Adentwi Hayford placed the confiscated items on a high table as a visual illustration of the moral and disciplinary challenges some students posed. Though she declined to name the culprit, she assured parents that appropriate disciplinary actions alongside counseling would be taken. She clarified that while the majority of students were disciplined, a persistent few continued to exhibit deviant behaviors that undermined the school's standard. She goes on to say, the story goes on to say, she condemned instances where parents verbally attacked or placed curses on school authorities for disciplining their wards without verifying the act. And we support the school in this full, enforcement of, discipline and a set moral code, right? And a set moral standard among students.
I think at home too, parents need to do a bit more.
Yeah.
Talk to, Ghanaian parents don't really talk to their kids.
Yeah. Because what are you using a condom and a contraceptive for?
In
and
school.
Sex toys in school, right? And at that age, because these are like 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, and I don't think we should, it's fact, this story broke on social media. People were saying that, oh, it's about time, let's not pretend that these teenagers are not in a sex frenzy world, right? Some of them have sex even more than married couples. Let's face the fact, and let's move beyond now saying abstain to encouraging them to have safer sex.
Protective.
And I found it very repulsive, right? Because at that age, the major preoccupation of students in the school, secondary school, shouldn't shouldn't be about having sex. So please, let's there's this whole thing about, I don't want to even say they are being woke, right? But it's like they're jumping on a trend where they are trying to, like, what is the meaning of that?
Gen Z
Like,
lingo.
how do you say children in senior high schools should be given the freedom to have sex, and we should be encouraging them to have safe sex instead of abstinence? So please, let's crack the whip. Sometimes it's the king. The difference is the king.
On that note, that's it for our news review segment. When we return, we have one of our favorite segments in the show, What's Happening?